Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. Now don't worry, this video is not about the Young Turks, although there are some videos about the Young Turks in the works. It seems they keep producing stuff this month that I want to reply to, but I want to break it up. I don't want to do too many Young Turks videos in a row, because I care about you guys, and I don't want to have to subject you to that. So this video is once again about the Gillette ad, and this time I came across an extremely interesting clip on Good Morning Britain. And it's interesting because there is a very clear divide between the males and the females. And they both see the ad extremely different. The females are constantly saying that it's just promoting the positives of masculinity, and the males are saying, no, it doesn't. It's promoting negative stereotypes about males. And they can't seem to see eye to eye. Now, the interesting thing I find about this is we are constantly told by feminists that men don't understand what it's like to be a woman. They can't see the world from the female perspective. And to a certain extent, that's true. But it's interesting that they ignore this when it comes to talking about men and masculinity. It seems that women are experts on men and masculinity. Not only are they experts on it, but they know more about it than actual men. It seems that women understand what it's like to be a man even better than men do, and that gives them the right to lecture us. It's a fascinating thing to watch, not to mention a massive double standard. Now, let's get into the clip, because we've got a little bit to get through, so let's get stuck into it.
We've debated all things feminist for a long time.
Yeah.
I believe I'm a feminist. I believe absolutely in...
I know you do.
I believe completely in gender equality. I believe men should treat women properly, with respect, right? All those things, right? I have a problem, a real problem, with what I believe to be this new kind of war on masculinity.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a new war. It's been going on for 40 or 50 years at least now.
Yesterday, there was a report...
How are you defining masculinity?
I'm going to tell you.
Though?
I'm going to tell you. Yesterday, we debated on here...
American Psychological
a big
Association.
American Psychological report, which said that being stoic, right, was now apparently harmful, right? Being masculine was harmful, right? These things are now categorized as officially harmful, to which I say baloney.
So the American Psychological Association is up to them how they categorise 1,000 new things every year. But what I loved, I saw this advert and I literally, at the end of it, I was like, oh, I love men.
What do you love about it?
Men are so great. What I loved about it is I thought it showed men at their very best. It showed...
Oh, she thought it showed men at their very best. You know, when it was talking about men who are rapists and sexual assaulters and all that stuff. That's men at their very best. Now, obviously she wasn't talking about that part. She was talking about the part where the men were correcting the other men. That's apparently men at their best, when they're policing other men in the interest of women. Now, the fact that some of these feminists find that is a... probably the best thing that a man can be is a defender of women. That reminds me of something. You see, back in America's past, when there was slavery, there were two types of slaves. The first type of slave worked in the field, and they were commonly called field Negroes, or, as some people called them, field Nigger. The other type of slave worked in the house, and they were called house Negroes, or, as some people would call them, house Nigger. Now, I'm going to let Malcolm X explain the difference between these two types of slaves.
To understand this, you have to go back to what young brother here referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro, back during slavery. There was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food. what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save their master's house quicker than the master would. The house Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the house Negro say, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, what's the matter, boss? We sick. We sick. He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's separate, that house Negro would look at you and say, man, you crazy. What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was that house Negro. In those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today, because we still got some house niggers running around here.
Now, I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not suggesting that men are enslaved by women or that women oppress men, which is a very common strawman used by feminists against MRAs, right? So I'm not suggesting that in any way. But what I'm saying is that there is a certain type of man that likes to pander to feminists and to women in general. And that's the type of man that feminists like. Now, to illustrate the point, let me show you a couple of clips from a few years ago.
Dear woman, we stand before you today as men committed to becoming more conscious in every way.
We feel deep love, great respect, and a growing sense of worship for the gifts of the feminine. We also feel deep sorrow about the destructive actions of the unconscious masculine in the past and present.
We want to apologize and make amends for those actions today, so that we can move forward together into a new era of co-creation.
As men, our relationship to the feminine has often been unconscious. I feel sorrow that women and feminine energy have for so long been subjugated and oppressed.
Throughout history, men have raped and abused you, burned you at the stake, bought and sold your bodies for sexual pleasure,
barred you from religious and political office,
relegated you to subservient chores,
forced you to hide your faces, and even cut off your organs of sexual pleasure.
I may not have done these things myself,
but I'm aware of the forces of the unconscious masculine psyche that feel threatened by and then seek to dominate the feminine.
Many of the men who have oppressed and abused you are no longer alive.
Among the living, many men may not be able to apologize because they remain shackled in a prison of anger, fear, and shame.
On behalf of my gender, I apologize to you
for our unconscious actions when we were angry, scared, and in the grip of destructive forces in our psyche.
I choose to no longer contribute to those forces.
Yeah, I apologise for that. That's even worse than the Young Turks. But we see a couple of patterns here. First of all, we see femininity being this desired perfection and masculinity being this negative thing, right, which is responsible for all the bad things in the world. In fact, they refer to femininity as conscious and masculinity as unconscious. And then they apologize for all the bad things that other men have done, because all men are responsible for all the bad men, apparently, which is the message of the Gillette ad, right? And the one way to be a good man is to not only change your masculinity, but to take responsibility for the bad men in the world. Of course, at no time does this apply to any women. Women aren't responsible for the actions of other women because, women never do anything wrong. It's always the fault of men. Now, we also saw this a couple of years ago in an United Nations campaign.
We don't often talk about men being imprisoned by gender stereotypes, but I can see that they are, and that when they are free, things will change for women as a natural consequence. If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled. Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It is time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideals. If we stop defining each other by what we are not and start defining ourselves by who we are, we can all be freer. And this is what HeForShe is about. It's about freedom. I want men to take up this mantle so that their daughters, sisters, and mothers can be free from prejudice, but also so that their sons have permission to be vulnerable and human too. Reclaim those parts of themselves they abandoned, and in doing so, be a more true and complete version of themselves.
The title, HeForShe, should have been a dead giveaway, shouldn't it? So we see a pattern here. We see masculinity seen as negative, femininity seen as positive, and men encouraged to either change themselves or to change other men for the benefit of women.
But we still got some house niggers running around here.
And this is the type of man that apparently feminists find attractive. Well, I shouldn't say find attractive because they tend to despise them as weak. But these are the type of men that they see having positive masculinity. Anyway, I'm going to finish up this section of the video by letting comedian Bill Maher sum it all up perfectly. I think he does a fantastic job. So I'm just going to play the clip and then I'm going back to Good Morning Britain.
Please, it is not anti-woman just to talk about women, okay? And we're going to do it now. Because when I say this is a feminized country, first of all, understand that I get it, that there are millions and millions of women who are steely-eyed realists and millions of men who are anything but. However, for lack of a better term, I would say that the feminine values are now the values of America. Sensitivity is more important than truth. Feelings are more important than facts. Commitment is more important than individuality. Children are more important than people. Safety is more important than fun. I always hear women say, you know, married men live longer. Yes, and an indoor cat also lives longer. It's a furball with a broken spirit that can only look out on a world it will never enjoy, but it does technically live longer. See, this is very personal to me because I'm like the last of my guy friends who have never gotten married, and their wives, they don't want them playing with me. You know, I'm like the escaped slave. I bring news of freedom. You know, it's not a good thing to have me around, you know. Keep the husbands in the dark. They're happier that way. But, you know, all my married friends, I knew these guys when they were young, and they were Mustangs. They used to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and now they are not Mustangs. They're that horse in Central Park with the blinders on, you know, just going around in a circle in a cloud of flies and shitting in a bucket, you know, just... So I know women don't have it easy in America, but it is sort of politically incorrect just to be male in this country now. I mean, look at television. Look at any sitcom. The wife is always brilliant and ethereal and right about everything, and the husband is always a dumb fuck lucky to have found her. The only smart men on television are Frasier and his brother, both of whom are gayer than Little Richard's underpants. So, I understand that women suffer, but I don't think it's as much publicized that a lot of men in America are living lives of quiet desperation, lobotomized of their libido, anesthetizing themselves with sports and pornography, and living in an Orwellian world where we have to pretend to concur with the woman's point of view. On any TV show in America, if somebody got up there and said, you know, women are smarter than men, automatic round of applause. If somebody said men are smarter than women, you'd be booed off the stage. I mean, what does that tell you about our culture, that we have to pretend that one sex is smarter than the other? Women are smarter than men. If women ran the world, there'd be no wars. Being pregnant is sexy. You know, just a whole roster of things that we don't really believe, but we pretend to believe because it's easier to make women nod than to live in the doghouse.
It showed men sticking up for each other. It showed men looking after people weaker than them.
This is now a crime. A man trying to overachieve and be successful is a crime.
Harry's not saying it's a crime.
Radical feminists don't like men trying to overachieve.
I'm saying how lovely it is to see men just being nice to each other, being nice to other people, and setting a great example as fathers.
Okay,
Why
Peter,
would you not want that?
Peter, listen, I find this whole idea that we have to somehow be defensive about being male, about being masculine, when actually many of the qualities which make a man, which make a masculine man, are qualities, I think, as Gillette has always thought, by the way, are things to be celebrated. And we can be all that and sensitive. You can be tough and emotional. You can be all those things.
Clip of the advert we just saw, the dad is telling his child to be strong.
Right, but here's the difference. In their advert are little flashes of news coverage of sexual harassment, of abuses, of predators.
That happened.
This has never seen a top female company like Gillette, aimed at women for personal hygiene or whatever, starting a commercial with a basic premise that women are bad things.
Oh, I would love to do that. I would.
Many adverts.
Let Peter speak.
I could write the treatment for that advert. You could teach women not to make false rape allegations, not to commit paternity fraud, not to deny fathers their rights to their children after a divorce.
So why are you laughing?
Well, we could also...
Why are you laughing?
Because
that is the worst. That is the worst.
6% of rape allegations in this country end in conviction. That's appalling.
Okay, I don't want to go over the rape stats again because I've done that in numerous videos in the past, and no doubt I will do it again in the future because it's a very common topic. But yeah, 6% of rape allegations being proven in a court of law does not negate the fact that false allegations do exist, and they are also a problem. Now, I'm pretty sure that she thinks that 100% or close to 100% of allegations are in fact true, and she really wouldn't be happy until we had a rate of conviction around 100%, despite the fact that sometimes the accused rapist can't be found, other times there's a lack of evidence, sometimes the accuser drops the case, sometimes it's proven that the accuser has made a false allegation. There are lots of reasons why it's only 6%.
There are still...
Appalling.
There are still... His point...
That is appalling and revolting.
Still...
No, Harriet. No, Harriet. No. Because actually...
Why can't that be...
Because actually the premise of the Gillette ad about men is that all men are predators, right? Until proven otherwise.
I don't think you're right.
What Peter just said... Look how angry you were. Look how angry you were.
I am because...
No, let me finish my question. Let me finish my question. Look how you erupted with rage at Peter's suggestion that he make a commercial which focuses on bad women and how you can be better, right?
Now, this is a very good point. In fact, it's one I made in my last video about Gillette. If the Gillette ad had have been focusing on other groups, say women or Muslims or African Americans or whatever, any other group other than males, the media would have gone ballistic and called it sexist or racist, and there would have been a massive amount of angry commentary from the same people who are now saying that men are overreacting to the Gillette ad. Now, if you don't want to take my word for it that that's something that would happen, then let me show you a little experiment conducted by Men's Rights Sydney. Because they went to the Women's March in Sydney and they asked this very question. And the video is very, very interesting. I'm only going to play a little bit of it here. I'll have a link below as always, and I highly recommend you go and watch it if you haven't. It's a fascinating video. Anyway, here's the clips.
G'day, this is Adrian Johnson. On Sunday, we went to the Women's March. With us, we had a billboard that featured 2 gender-flipped quotes, that from the now infamous Gillette ad. What happened next? Stay tuned to find out.
I'm going to dive in if I can.
Fire away.
Hi, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Person. Okay, no problem. So we're trying to say here with this sign that women need to hold other women accountable.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
And we believe that women can be better than they are today.
To say the right thing.
Right, but what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by women can be better? Is what I'm asking.
Well, exactly that.
Like, what institutional oppression do women perpetuate? Is my question.
To act the right way.
I don't know. All I'm saying is women need to hold other women accountable for...
Like what? What for?
Well, I think we all do good things, we all do bad things. In this case, there are some actions that women can be better than they are today.
So you've come to a women's march about gender equality and you're holding up a sign that is contrary to that.
Yes.
But this is like an anti-woman sign. This
No. We believe women are strong and can hold other women accountable.
I am strong.
I am strong.
Just like men do.
Why are you bringing that to a feminist march is my question.
But some is not enough.
A women's march.
A feminist march.
A women's march. A women's march.
About feminism.
For women's rights.
Right, but I'm confused. Like, are you doing this? Like, would you consider yourself a feminist? Like, you're at a feminist march, so are you guys feminists?
I'm here to support women.
Okay, but so you're not a feminist?
I didn't say that. I said I'm here to support women, and women can be strong enough to hold other women accountable when they can be better. And I know that sounds like rhetoric.
I'm just curious as to like why you've brought that to a march called the Women's March, which is about feminism.
Yeah, it's about women, apparently.
So you're distracting from the message of this being a space where women can come to talk about their experiences by bringing like a really questionable sign. Like, you're essentially just here to cause trouble and shit stir, because you know that people like me, feminists, are going to see this and feel upset by it and come and ask you about it. And then you're responding
I'm
to my
sorry
questions.
you feel that way.
I'm still talking. Please be quiet. So you're responding to my questions with things that
I don't want to be quiet.
So I'm just wondering why you're here. Like, are you just here to shit stir, or are you?
Not at all. You can hold your friends accountable.
Why would I be holding, like, what?
If you don't, who will?
So you're just here to shit stir, essentially.
If you don't hold your women friends to be better than they are today, who will?
I actually have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Edwina. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
So here's the thing. You just said to us that this message is really unacceptable.
Yeah. And if you're going to bring up the Guillette ad, quite frankly, I think that's ridiculous.
Why?
Because the Guillette ad comes from a different place. Like, I understand why people are offended by the Guillette ad, because if you don't have, I guess, university level knowledges of what toxic masculinity is, and like, if you don't understand feminist rhetoric, you might be confused by the messages in the ad.
Take your phone.
Can I ask a question?
Hold on, Edwina's saying something. Hold your phone.
I just do not understand why you guys are here distracting from messages about women in the world who are being persecuted, and you're here holding up this sign because you're upset about an ad that a razor company put out. Like, it seems a bit childish.
Okay. I think it's so not childish, as it were, that a company believes there's money in saying that. So if there's money in saying that, it can be said to women too. But I do appreciate this dialogue.
This is like, I just don't understand what you were doing here at a women's march. This is so gronky. You were like surrounded by people who are here to talk about women's empowerment and feminism and all of the issues that face women today in this world that affect other genders, because the patriarchy affects us all. And you brought this awful shit-stirring sign because you're upset about a Gillette ad about razors. Like, it's
outrage.
You are angry, very angry.
I'm super angry. I am angry that Peter is saying that this advert, which shows men at their best,
it doesn't show men at their best.
It doesn't show us at our best. No,
it doesn't show men at their best.
But we still got some house niggers running around here.
There's
I'm
men
sorry.
behaving badly and other men standing up to
That
it.
is not true. This advert is really dangerous. This politically motivated war on men is very malevolent.
Totally agree.
And you have to look at it in the context of men are killing themselves at a record rate.
Partly because of the
there
pressure
are,
on them
excuse
to
me,
be
let me finish.
a
There are
stereotype.
BS. There are 15 men who kill themselves every single day, and part of the reason for that is this constant narrative, this constant misandry and man-hating in the media. And you two, identifying as feminists, you've got 3 sons. Where's your outrage on this?
Okay, and I'm sorry, Piers,
Because
where's your
I think it's
example of this
about
erupting
celebrating.
rage?
Hang on, Peter's just made an accusation towards me about as being a mother of 3 boys. I think this is celebrating the spectrum of masculinity.
Celebrating the spectrum of masculinity. Yes, either you're a rapist or you're a man who defends women against the bad men. And that's it. That's the spectrum. It seems awful black and white for a spectrum, doesn't it?
It doesn't.
I don't. No, I totally understand that you have your viewpoint, but you've asked me to explain mine. And I think that it's really important that men don't feel trapped in a certain expectation
that is
and
so
pressure.
patronising.
What's the expectation?
Okay, well, hang on.
What's the expectation?
But you've asked me to explain my
what is the
view about this.
expectation?
I don't want them to feel trapped in having to achieve a certain thing or be a certain vision of masculinity. I think they can be sensitive and loving and caring, and that is not
Who's
something
saying they
to be
can't?
ashamed of.
Who's saying men can't be that and also want to achieve?
Because
What is
you
wrong
say-
with encouraging young men to want to be successful,
What's
to try and make the
wrong
best
with
of their
encouraging
lives?
them to be
Gillette
the
used to be the
whole
best a
spectrum?
man can be.
It's
Now it says
masculinity.
you're the worst that men can be,
No,
and
it
here's how you
doesn't.
get better.
It's saying
And your
success
reaction
for
was
young
really
men.
fascinating. When Peter
Well,
suggested...
your reaction to me being angry
Right.
and not your reaction to Peter being angry
No.
is really
No, no.
fascinating.
Now, here we see our feminist friend revert to feminist ideology, right? She doesn't understand what's going on, so she just reverts to the standard feminist ideology, which is, if someone's disagreeing with me or criticising me, it must be because I'm a woman. She assumes that the host has a double standard towards her because she's female, and that he's allowing the male to get away with being angry because he's a male. But if she dares to get angry, then, well, he's going to criticise her because women aren't allowed to express that emotion or some shit. Now, she totally misses the point that she's having the exact same reaction as men who have viewed the Gillette ad. And therefore, our emotions are justified and her arguments against us are bullshit. But she doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand this. Her ideology gets in the way and blinds her. So once again, it's all about her being oppressed because of her sex and everything being sexism. This is really fascinating to watch and study.
You reacted with blind fury when he suggested making a commercial which focused on the worst of women. Rather like the Gillette ad, has flashbacks to news coverage of sexual harassment cases, as if somehow all men are like the people who've been arrested for sexual
No one's
harassment.
saying all men are like that.
You didn't like it. You didn't like it.
The implication.
You didn't like the implication that there should be a commercial focusing on bad women.
No,
and yet there are
Harry
bad
was
women.
making a
Let me
specific
break the
point
news to you.
about
Not all women are
I'm
perfect.
not saying they are, but what I am saying is that, actually, lots of advertising has already showed women at their very worst for hundreds of years.
Really? Can you name a single ad focusing on the negative aspects of femininity in the same way that the Gillette ad has? Just one ad.
Not in terms of what I said. Not in terms of what I said.
Also, that when
What about
we
women
pull
who
out
grew
and
male
say-
minors in schools and sleep with them?
Absolutely.
I mean, the bottom line with this, there's a balance, isn't there? There are bad men. I think there are bad women, right? I think the vast majority of women are actually pretty good, right? I think the vast majority of men actually are well-intentioned and pretty good. Isn't that the balance we need to strike in this debate, rather than what I think is a lot of PC stuff aimed at fueling this misapprehension that somehow we're all awful?
Absolutely, and also we have to think clearly about this toxic masculinity term. Women do the most of the child rearing, so if boys turn out to be bad men, blame the mothers that raised them.
You tried to.
Don't blame the men.
You tried to blame me earlier.
Yeah,
yeah, actually, he didn't blame you at all. He just mentioned that you're raising sons, and it's somewhat worrying that you think that the Gillette ad is positive masculinity. But he does have a very valid point if we assume that toxic masculinity isn't something which men are born with, but it's something which is taught to them. And basically women do most of the child rearing both at home and in schools, etc., etc., then we have to wonder who really is teaching young boys this toxic masculinity. It'd be interesting to do a study and look at homes where boys have been raised by a single mother with no male role models or influence, and see if they still turn out to be toxic. That is, toxic according to what feminists claim is toxic.
I didn't blame you. I didn't blame you. I was asking you why you weren't concerned enough when you had 3 sons.
Thank you, Peter. My final thought is that perhaps if fathers were more involved, as they are in the Gillette advert, in the raising of their sons and daughters, we wouldn't have...
But they were...
Now, I would agree that there are some deadbeat dads, but you can't say that all fathers are responsible for being separated from their kids. In fact, if we want to talk about toxic femininity, we should look at divorces and how some women lie and manipulate courts to keep the father of their children away from their own kids. But of course, we won't talk about that, will we? No, we'll just blame all the fathers, regardless of the circumstances, which is exactly what Anna Kasparian did.
The fathers are the ones who have made the decision to not be fathers. The fathers are the ones who decided to abandon their kids and go off and do whatever else they want to do. So, like, whose fault is that? Are you blaming the women in this situation for that?
More involved in the original...
Well, maybe they should have equal rights.
Yeah, my final thought is, in the original Gillette ad, you saw a man helping his young son shave. I taught my sons to do that. You saw them hugging their dad when they got married. I did that. You saw them actually being all the things
you
which
see that
men...
in the second ad you had as well.
But in the first ad, it's celebrated, and there's none of this terrible negativity of the second one. The second one is predicated on the belief that men are basically bad and have to be taught how to be
if you watch
men
that
you can
second
celebrate.
advert and think men are bad, you are not watching the full thing.
Then I
celebrates the joy
Then
of
I
men,
say to you,
and I think
Harriet,
it's
imagine
brilliant.
the same ad but aimed at a female audience, and the same
We're
radical
gonna wait for that
feminists
to be made.
lauding this
Okay.
ad would scream abuse.
You know what? Give men equal parenting rights, and that might happen, Harriet.
Happily. Peter, have you begun boycotting Gillette?
You know what? I might switch. I've been with Gillette over 30 years. I'm so incensed by this, I might actually switch.
And you know what? I think this Gillette ad in the long run might be a good thing, because it's gone pretty mainstream, and a lot of men who normally wouldn't give a shit about this stuff are getting pissed off. This might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, at least in some cases. Oh, and by the way, fuck Gillette.
And also, the YouTube version that they put up of this commercial, I think it's had 17,000 likes and now over 200,000
It's on course to be the most unpopular video online.
Because you know why? Men have had enough of it, and a lot of women have had enough, I think, of the demonisation of men. Right? They have. Look at that. It's one of the most hated videos in the history of commercials. On the left, radical feminists who love it because it portrays men as bad. On the right, men and women who like their men to be men saying, no, we've had enough of this.
I like my men to be men, by the way.
No, you don't. You don't. You're like, well, you do privately. You just in public. You
Privately?
pretend you like men to be gibbering wrecks.
I couldn't sit next to a more...
You work with an alpha male,
yes.
You date an alpha male,
Yes, I
you
bring
love
up
alpha
3
males,
men.
I've met your sons,
Yes.
they're alpha males, right?
Yes.
And yet you sit here
And
pretending
apparently I'm a
you want them all
terrible
to be,
person,
you want them all to
radical
be
feminist,
weeping.
a man-hater, and I want the end of mankind.
Yes.
Can you not see the slight flaw in your argument?
Glad you...
Anyway.
A social experiment.
Yes.
Okay, all right. This has been fun, MRAs.
Well, yes, actually I am.
You're an MRA.
Yes, I am.
Oh my fucking god. You're at a feminist march and you're a fucking men's rights activist.
Yeah.
Are you off your nut, mate? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Nothing.
So you've come
I
here
support
today
equality.
to a feminist march.
A woman's march.
As a men's rights activist, and you're expecting people to not get angry at you.
No, I don't think. I don't think.
Okay, so
No,
you
no.
came here so that people would get angry
That's
at
up to you. That's totally up to you. And we'll stand over here. We'll stand over here and say nothing.
If I want
You approached
people
us.
to get angry at me,
Of course I approach you. You have a huge sign.
If I
about
wanted-
how women need to hold other women accountable.
If I wanted-
She's holding a fucking paper about the Gillette ad. Of course I, as a feminist, are going to come and get angry at MRAs at a fucking women's march.
That's your choice.
people to get angry at me, this is what I would have done.
Oh my god, you're
Okay?
fucking kidding
This is what I
me.
would have done.
Oh, you have a men's. Oh, and it's got the Australian flag in it as well, so we have some Australian white nationalism. Oh my god, the layers, they just keep coming
And I'm
off.
Jewish too.
It's consensual.
Why is that of any interest to this conversation?
Because I'm not what you would consider.
You both found a lot to agree about here.
Men's rights. Shut up. You're wearing a men's rights activist t-shirt at a women's march.
You both found a lot to agree about here. You both found a lot to agree about
That
here.
makes it so much better. You hid your men's rights activist shirt with a shirt so that we. Okay, but you're just gonna like reveal it to me
Yes.
just to get me more annoyed.
No, I'm revealing it to you to make a point that I
About
was
men's
not.
rights activism
No,
at a
no.
feminist march.
That I was not here to cause trouble.
Okay.
That all I was here to do is create a bit of a social
You
experiment.
lovingly assembled out of pure rage to the Gillette ad, which is oppressing you as a man in our awful society that's awful to
At
men.
no point did I claim to be oppressed.
Okay, all right. Why?
Literally on my website, I
Oh, you have a
literally say I
website!
am not
Oh my god, you have a website. That makes it all so much better. I'm so
just
happy
saying.
that you, men's rights activists, today have decided to grace us mere women with your wonderful intellectual presence. Like, I honestly am so grateful that you've come here to challenge me on the myths of feminism and women's empowerment. I'm super happy you're
Well,
here,
I am also
MRA.
very grateful for this conversation. Yeah.
Oh my god, you fucking assholes. I do not understand why you're here. Like, why are you at a
Ask
women's
why.
march if you're
Ask,
an MRA?
ask why we might be here. We'll answer you anything.
I've literally been asking for a while. I'm just curious as to why a men's rights activist has decided to come to a women's march for feminism. Because maybe this just isn't a place for you. It's a feminist march.
It's a women's march.
It's on the fucking website that it's feminist.
Can I stop over here?
The title is Women's March, not Feminist March, correct?
Are you off your fucking tree?
I'm asking the question.
It's obviously a feminist march.
Okay.
Okay, alright.
Well,
I just
from where
don't
I'm
understand
sitting,
why you're
I'm
here
I'm
in your
holding
men's rights
what you
activist
bel-
t-shirt
Yeah.
with your tiny little counter-rally contingent of 2 men and your token woman
What
who's
makes it a
probably here so that I
counter-rally?
can't call you
You know,
misogynistic.
I really want to be on your side when you're rude to me. It makes me feel so much better. That's the
Why
point.
are you here
That is
as a
the
men's
point.
rights activist?
That you
You're
don't
at a
care.
women's march. You're here to cause trouble. This is so awful
That is exactly
you
the
as a
point.
men's rights activist would be here today with all of the
I was
things
just
that have happened in
curious
the
to
past
see
week.
if gender flipping the ad would cause trouble, and apparently it has.
Everything here was in that ad. Everything here was good enough for 22 million views and corporate sponsorship.
By a fucking ad about
Why
the
are you
Gillette
annoyed about
races.
it? Why are you annoyed about this?
To this rally
Why are
and
you?
stuff.
Why does this sign annoy you?
Because it's misogynistic and this is a feminist space. And you're here at a feminist march to come and cause trouble. Like, I don't understand why you have brought this sign here today to a women's march that is about women's equality and empowerment, and you are here to shit stir and get women to be angry at you.
That's entirely the point. Dialogue with anyone shouldn't be about concessions. That's the problem.
Okay, look, I understand, like, you brought a token woman today to talk to me, but I still think it's absolutely ridiculous.
How do you feel about that?
Here, a Gillette ad about razors. Like,